All right, so I'm going with a limited palette again. I've got titanium white here, cadmium yellow medium, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue green shade. Using liquid original for my medium. I've got odorless mineral spirits in a brush washer and an assortment of brushes, but lately I've been using natural bristle flats, actually mostly just this number 8, and I'm painting over an old 11 by 14 inch panel. All right, so here is the scene, and I'm gonna try to keep it simple. Got a dark mixture here using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. All right, so what I'm gonna try to do here is, you know, start off with a light dark pattern that is appealing, okay? So that is going to be the first step. And the fact that the old painting is sort of, you know, the color of the ocean is really helpful. The old painting was just almost an abstract experiment to, you know, kind of a color experiment where I was just looking straight down at the water, no composition at all, just trying to paint the colors that I saw. There's a lot of transparency here. I'm having some trouble getting coverage, so I'll just kind of alter my brush strokes. I think I'll have the horizon maybe like up here, something like that. Maybe I'll have a few rocks out here, like that. All right, kind of filling in these rocks over to the right. And I think I want the land on this side to be a little bit more precipitous, steeper, and then have the tree, you know, kind of coming off of this slope. Something like that. Okay, I've got titanium white here with a touch of ultramarine blue. All right, I feel like I want to start establishing some whitewater patterns. There's a lot of whitewater down in the bottom, closer to shore here. And I'm just looking for patterns, you know, in the waves. All right, it seems like the waves are coming in at an angle like this. So a little bit more of an angle down here, and then as they go closer to the horizon, they'll be more horizontal. And that's something I do pretty frequently, is like create a sort of radial pattern. All right, I've got a little more of the dark mixture here. As I've mentioned many times, I use the scenery as raw materials to create an interesting design, or what I hope will be an interesting design. You know, I can't really overemphasize how important it is to focus on design. For many years, my focus was just on, you know, drawing and color and brushwork and all that, and I didn't even really think that much about the composition. But as years have gone by, I realized none of that matters if your composition is not good. All right, so I'm looking at these branches for inspiration here, and I'm just squinting to simplify the shapes. Not interested in detail, I'm just interested in this dark-light relationship here. At this point, I've got a lot of open space between the branches, a little more than I'd like. Painting over an old panel is kind of challenging when it comes to this sort of subject matter. Normally what I like to do is just scrub in randomly and then step back and look and see what I've got, and then work with the shapes that I've created spontaneously. But I can't really do that when I'm painting over an old panel because the panel's not very absorbent. That's good though. I like to be challenged and, you know, thrown off balance, or not able to use my normal techniques, because it often makes me sort of experiment and figure out new solutions to problems. I'm walking back to see how I like the abstract shapes, and so far I do like the shapes I'm seeing. So I'm going to start putting in some of the light background, like the sky and obviously the water as well. But the main thing I'm focusing on at this point is just trying to make sure that I like the abstract light dark pattern, and I don't move on until I see something that I like. All right, I've added some titanium white to my dark mixture. This will be a good starting point for my sky. I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat. Normally I use a number 8. But being that there are some smaller shapes here, I think that the number 6 is going to be better suited to this particular painting. And You can see I can still get a fairly wide stroke with this. That's about, let's say, almost a 3/4 inch stroke there. And when painting over an old painting, I often build it up using loaded strokes right from the beginning. All right, horizon about here. Get those sky holes going. All right, I mixed up a blue-green here using ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, a bit of burnt sienna, and now I'm gonna add some alizarin crimson to the mix. There's always more red in ocean mixtures than you might think. The value shift at the horizon here is fairly delicate because it's so foggy. I think we all have our own design sense, so to speak. I like strong, simple compositions. That just suits my temperament as a painter. All right, down around these rocks, got ultramarine blue, titanium white, and what else is in there? I don't even actually know, to be honest with you. All right, I feel like these shapes could be a touch darker, so I've added some more ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and alizarin crimson. Okay, I've mixed up a mid-tone blue-green here using ultramarine blue, titanium white, and cadmium yellow medium. Feel like I want a little bit more saturation in the greens, closer to the shoreline here. As it goes off into the distance, there's more moisture in the atmosphere, so I will definitely gray it down, have less warmth, you know, out here, and then also a lighter value. As I mentioned, I'm using sort of intentional strokes here, trying to build the painting up using loaded, intentional strokes, which is how I typically finish a painting. You know, if I'm painting on canvas or a blank panel, I'll start by scrubbing, but then once I've got my design, then I'll come in with loaded, intentional strokes. All right, I feel like I want to alter this shape maybe a little bit and have some white water going off behind the tree. It looks like there's kind of a triangular shape here coming towards the shore, so I like that. Out here there's like a breaking wave. A little bit lighter mixture here. This is titanium white added to my blue-green mixture, and I also added a bit of you know, a purple mixture that I had on my palette that was just alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. All right, I've got kind of a straight line along the bottom here. I want to break that up and also maybe have this line of waves, you know, kind of drop down a little bit. Maybe something like that. All right, so an aqua mixture here using phthalo blue, cadmium yellow medium, and titanium white. Seeing some really nice blue greens out here. I'm having fun looking for shifts in color and value and temperature, but I'm always keeping this design in mind. So I don't want to break up that light dark pattern. So I've got to make sure that all of these lights in the background here are relatively high value. All right, I've got a dark brownish mixture here that I made using ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and cadmium yellow medium. Again, paying attention to the value here, making sure that this brownish color is dark enough to maintain the shapes. All right, so mixing up a dark here using ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Eliminate the blue greens from the previous painting. All right, I'm going to add a little variety to these darker purple spots out in the water, suggesting maybe some rocks that are closer to the surface, and just picking up a darkish, brownish red color from the palette. That was a little bit too red, just mixing directly on the panel here. Some of this orangish color from the palette. And I think I want some dark greens in here. All right, dark green here, starting with cadmium yellow medium and ultramarine blue, but I've added some alizarin because alizarin crimson warms up greens in such a natural and really pleasant way. It's very appealing. I just think that's such a beautiful green. That's something that isn't talked about very much, is, you know, how colors react with other colors or how they mix with other colors. And as I've said before, that's one of my favorite things about alizarin is it just mixes beautifully with other colors. I'm gonna try to leave this painting very loose, like looser than I'm comfortable with, and then we'll get it back to the house, set it in a frame, and see how it looks. All right, I've mixed up another green here. This time I'm using phthalo blue instead of ultramarine, and I'm just gonna add a few bits of more saturated green here. And I wanna be intentional about where I place these. You know, they've got to maybe serve some compositional purpose. I don't want them to be too pronounced, but I think that's okay. Still paying attention to the value here at the horizon. And I'm squinting at the shapes. You know, we have a tendency to clean things up too much, but when I'm squinting, I can't see detail, and I'm just, you know, trying to decide whether the big shapes are working or not. It's kind of trial and error with these shapes, you know. It's just try something, and if you like it, keep it. If not, change it. But like I said, it's almost impossible for me to make a decision regarding the shape if I'm not squinting. If I'm looking with normal vision, I will typically, it's just very hard for me to focus on the shape, and I'll end up cleaning it up. And it won't work. So squint is the key. Squint to simplify. All right, I'm not giving mixes anymore because I'm just working into these existing piles. You know, I'll just find a pile of paint that looks kind of like what I want, and then I'll just adjust, often pulling, you know, from other areas of the palette. I don't typically do that when I'm painting with a more, you know, with more colors on my palette. So I'm really loving this simple, limited palette. All right, I've got a dark green mixture here. This is mostly just ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow medium. Just trying to maybe build up a little bit of texture. All right, so adding some variation to the foliage by adding some lighter bits of green. I actually added some over here, but I do not like that because that draws the eye over to the edge, and I'd rather have the focus be in this area here. So just adding some ultramarine blue to tone these down a bit. I mean, a little variety is okay, but if there's too much contrast, then the eye goes right over to the edge. All right, so here's what I finished up with. And I did not want to overwork this painting, so I stopped early, or at least what I thought was early. But now that I've got it home in a frame, it looks fine to me. I don't think I'll do much to it. There may be some minor cleanup. But overall, as I mentioned, what I was focusing on was a nice relationship between the light and dark shapes. And I do feel like, you know, that relationship was maintained. I kept the values of the water and the sky light enough, and the tree and the land dark enough that relationship is intact. And that's what I built the composition around, just that light and dark pattern. The colors are somewhat subdued, but that's, you know, typical for a gray day. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. Got a bunch of extra videos and a materials list. Check it out. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.